Oh, right now.
A little bit.
It's almost like you turn a switch around of the. Here. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Good evening, friends. I'm so glad you could come out tonight. My name is Phil Harling. I'm professor of history here at UM, and I currently serve as director of UM's Center for the Humanities, which is located in the College of Arts and Sciences. And Dean Leonidas Bacchus of the college is here with us tonight as well. Thank you for being here, Dean. It's the center's great honor and privilege to help steward the Lady Blanka Rosenstiel Endowed Program in Polish Heritage, without whose generous support this evening would not have been possible. In a moment, we'll hear more about Lady Blanka and about the Rosenstiel lecture here at UM and throughout South Florida more generally. Suffice it to say for now that this legacy is powerful and lasting. Our close ally and partner in administering the Rosenstiel program here at UM is the American Institute of Polish Culture. The Institute's executive director, Beata Paszyc, has worked tirelessly to make this evening's program a reality, and it's a pleasure to acknowledge and to thank her and her team. I'd also like to thank my team members at the Center for the Humanities for their own many contributions to tonight's program. Assistant Director Christina Larson, Office Manager Elizabeth Hernandez, Graduate Fellow Prashanti Pathak, and our student assistants Lena Hopper and Jackson Ori. And now, as we move from my own local welcome to a broader welcome, in keeping with our Polish theme this evening, it's my great pleasure to call to the podium Nick Iwanicki, the UM's University Archivist.
Thank you, Phil, and thank all of you for being here. As Phil said, I'm Nick Iwanicki. I'm the University Archivist here at the University of Miami, which means I focus entirely on the history of our students, faculty, and staff across our 3 campuses. And that, of course, includes the very significant gifts of the Rosenstiel family. So we would like to take a few moments to recognize Lady Blanka Rosenstiel and the late Louis Rosenstiel for their generous gifts to the American Institute of Polish Culture in Miami, which has funded this lecture series, and to the University of Miami. The Rosenstiels have gifted approximately $100 million to educational institutions through the Rosenstiel Foundation. We honor their magnanimity and respect for the marine sciences with heartfelt gratitude. The University of Miami proudly carries their torch forward for world-class research and development. The University of Miami Rosenstiel School of Marine, Atmospheric, and Earth Sciences houses its main campus on Virginia Key. Pictured here in a recent photograph, it has grown to its current prominence, largely due to the financial support from the Rosenstiel Foundation. Here is an early image of the Marine Laboratory. In 1956, ground broke for the main building on the Virginia Key campus, and this was the same year that Lady Blanka A. Rosenstiel came to the United States. Lady Blanka Rosenstiel was born in Warsaw, Poland. After World War II, she studied art in Brussels. In 1967, she married the late Louis S. Rosenstiel, chairman of Schenley Industries, a humanitarian and philanthropist. In 1969, the University of Miami honored philanthropist Mr. Louis Rosenstiel with the dedication of the Rosenstiel Medical Sciences Building of the School of Medicine, and the changing of the name of the Institute of Marine Sciences to the Dorothy H. and Louis Rosenstiel School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences. This dedication honored a $12 million gift from Mr. Rosenstiel, the largest single gift the university has ever received, which is now worth over $103 million in 2024. President Stanford, Dr. F.G. Walton Smith, Dr. W. Dean Warren, and Mr. Rosenstiel all gave speeches at the dedication for the campus. Lady Blanka's avid interest in the arts, dedication to help young artists, and desire to promote Poland's heritage while fostering culture in her American homeland prompted her to establish the American Institute for Polish Culture, AIPC, in Miami in 1972. In 1998, Mrs. Rosenstiel was appointed honorary consul to the Republic of Poland. She became the first Polish consul in the history of Florida. The American Institute of Polish Culture sponsors this lecture series. Established by Lady Blanka in 1972, AIPC shares with Americans the rich heritage of Poland, which has contributed in so many ways to the history of the United States, and promotes the scientific, scholarly, and artistic contributions of Polish Americans. In spring 2021, the Lady Blanka Rosenstiel Endowed Program in Polish Heritage was founded at the University of Miami. This lecture series is made possible by a generous gift to the University of Miami from the American Institute of Polish Culture. The first event in this lecture series was held virtually in December 2021 with an exciting presentation by Artur B. Chmielewski, project manager at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory at NASA, with an audience of nearly 100 online attendees, as this was during the COVID pandemic. In 2022, we held the inaugural in-person program for the series that featured His Eminence Mark Mazurowski, the ambassador of Poland to the United States. That evening was a significant event that marked the beginning of many more events that honor Polish culture in the future. 2 years ago, we featured the Honorable Aldona Woś for this lecture series. And last year, we welcomed the Honorable Mark Brzezinski to continue this legacy of speakers as part of our 2024-2025 Rosenstiel Lecture Series. This year, we're happy to welcome Dr. Bogdan Klich to represent his lecture as part of our 25-26 Rosenstiel Lecture Series. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Beata Paschitz.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. It is a pleasure to welcome you on behalf of Lady Blanka Rosenstiel, our founder and president, who could not be here today, but she sends warm regards, and she's very happy that she was able to contribute to making sure that Poland is not forgotten and that students, faculty, and our members and friends get to listen to lectures about Poland. My name is Beata Paschitz, and I am the Executive Director of the American Institute of Polish Culture and the Honorary Vice Consul of Poland. Lady Blanka, as mentioned, established the Institute in 1972 when Poland was still behind the Iron Curtain. And today, over 50 years later, it is a thriving institute with many lectures, seminars, film showings, exhibitions, and scholarships that the Institute has organized and sponsored. We have 2 events coming up, one for members, so those people who are not members yet, it's an opportunity to become a member. We have a Christmas celebration at our offices on December 9th. And the upcoming 53rd Annual International Polonez Ball will be happening on February 21st, and then the brunch on February 22nd. We are honored to have Dr. Bogdan Klich, the head of mission in the Embassy of the Republic of Poland in Washington, D.C., with us, with his wife, Anna Szymańska-Klich, who is present. And as you know, behind every successful man, there is an extraordinary woman standing right beside him. And as recognition of that, we would like to present you Mrs. Anna Klich with the flowers that are a token of our gratitude.
Wow, beautiful. Thank you very much. Beautiful.
We're grateful for all of you to be here, but it gives me an immense privilege to introduce to you Dr. Bogdan Klich, who has quite an interesting career path. He's a medical doctor. He has master's in art history and did doctoral studies in history and philosophy. He was also Poland's Minister of National Defense and member of the European Parliament. Apart from that, he managed the information department at the State TV Center in Kraków, was head of the International Center for Development of Democracy, and was head of the Institute for Strategic Studies. He was instrumental in negotiations for Poland's accession to European Union. Dr. Klich has dedicated his career to strengthening democratic values, advancing transatlantic cooperation, and supporting civil society. Please help me welcome Dr. Bogdan Klich to the podium. Thank you very much.
Thank you for this kind invitation and this warm introduction. I feel privileged to be here. It is an honor for me to be with you, with such a distinguished audience here, and to speak about the issues that are absolutely crucial for Poland, for Central Europe, and also for the United States. Let's not forget that this link between Europe and the United States gave America the chance to project its force and to shape or reshape the post-Cold War order in a way that we preferred before its collapse. When I say collapse, I mean the collapse of the Soviet Union's order. So the transatlantic cooperation for us both, I mean for Americans and Poles, still is valid, still is appreciated by many, and I hear such voices not only from your political elites in the United States, but also from ordinary citizens of the US. As you perhaps know, for us, for Poles, traditional pro-American approach is crucial, and we tried to maintain this Atlantic loyalty together with a new European loyalty during last almost 30 years, without any doubts. The beginning of our security policy, international security policy, was connected with the beginning of renewed axis between Washington and Warsaw. And fortunately, all the governments contributed to, let's say, enhancement of this cooperation. After the accession of Poland to the European Union, in 2004, we tried again to combine and to create a balance between both loyalties, European and Atlantic loyalties. And it is still a basis for our security policy to maintain those two loyalties and together to represent here in the United States European approach, and there in Europe the American values and American paradigms. I will concentrate on some details, if you don't mind. Once again, appreciating the organizers for this invitation, giving me a chance to do that. I'd like you to know that these are basic priorities of our strategic approach, it means Polish strategic approach, that every day I try to present to my American colleagues within this administration. I came here 1 year ago, and it was just after the election of new president and just before the creation of new administration. And I have to say that the cooperation with this administration is crucial for maintaining this strategic partnership between Poland and the United States. Even today, I received, just before this meeting, I have received, the confirmation that the Deputy Secretary of State, Mr. Landau, will meet the day after tomorrow in the margin of the NATO ministerial meeting, our Minister of Foreign Affairs. Regular contacts between Polish Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the State Secretary, regular contacts between our presidents, they create this environment in which we are able to develop a strategic partnership between our countries. Without any doubts, US leadership remains absolutely essential to achieve a lasting and just peace in Ukraine. I will begin with Ukraine because for Poland, let's not forget about that. Russian second war against Ukraine creates the most challenging objective. For Poland, Ukrainian independence is one of the guarantees of Polish security. There is no secure Poland without independent Ukraine. And it is, the approach that we accepted before 1989, before the beginning of the democratic transformation in Poland, and as one of the crucial achievements of Polish diaspora, mainly of Jerzy Giedroyć, Paryska Kultura, that was absolutely convinced that independence of Ukraine will be, in future, connected with the independence of Poland. And it was the main reason for supporting independence of Ukraine from the very beginning of this fact. It was our Ambassador Kozakiewicz, just after declaration of independence in December 1991, that brought to the presidential office in Kiev the recognition by Polish first government of the independence of Ukraine. Poland was the first country that decided to recognize independence of Ukraine because of our national interest. Because of this approach that I described a moment ago. That's why nowadays President Donald Trump's efforts to secure an unconditional ceasefire and begin peace talks this approach is so crucial for not only for Ukraine but also for Poland. As we see, Russia was unwilling to compromise or abandon its maximalist demands. At the same time, it continued strategy of buying time, while in reality, it was escalating its aggression. Attacks on cities and civilian infrastructure, together with the daily destruction of Ukraine's energy grid, caused by Russian missiles and drone strikes, confirm that the Kremlin will not be willing to negotiate peace unless it is forced to do so. The only realistic path is the peace through strength approach. We support this approach because we know Russia very well. We know the history of that country. We know the aspirations of the Putin's regime. We remember what President Putin expressed in one of his crucial articles he published in summer 2001, on the eve of the second aggression against Ukraine. I'm speaking about the famous article on so-called historical proximity between Ukrainians and Russians, in which President Putin undermined the Ukrainian statehood. As Minister of Defense in the year 2008, together with then President Lech Kaczyński and with our ministry, then Minister of Foreign Affairs Radek Sikorski, we heard a presentation by President Putin. It was in Bucharest, once again in 2008. 2008, when Putin took the floor and he presented his approach to the history of Ukraine. It was just after or even during our debate within NATO about the future accession of Ukraine to the alliance. He took the floor and he presented his opinions, speaking about artificial statehood of Ukraine. And he delivered a political message to us, I mean to the representations of all member states of the alliance, showing a Ukrainian map and presenting those parts of Ukrainian land that belonged before to Poland, to Hungary, to Russia, to Turkey. And it was not the academic presentation. It was purely political, strategic message about the willingness of that political elite in the Kremlin to destroy this Ukrainian statehood. That's why what we have to do now, it is to support Ukrainians in their fight for their freedom, democracy, sovereignty, and independence. In the coming days and weeks, Poland and other allies and partners are going to face the challenge of securing Ukraine's most immediate needs. Winter is coming. It will be the third winter after the beginning of this horrifying aggression. And for Ukrainians, it may prove to be the most difficult one since the start of the war. During this period, as allies, we should above all, first, ensure that Ukraine's power system stays functional, so as to avoid a humanitarian crisis, while also trying to boost the morale of Ukrainian society. As for Poland, we are providing equipment needed to repair damaged energy facilities. Gas operators from Poland and Ukraine have increased the capacity of the interconnector between our two countries to deliver necessary gas subsidies to Ukraine. The Polish energy company Orlen is cooperating with Ukraine's Naftogaz on deliveries of US gas to Ukraine via Poland. Let's not forget that we are, when I say we, I mean Poland, that we are the main consumer of US LNG gas in Central Europe. Let's not forget that we will need more. But please don't forget that we are ready to share this LNG gas with Ukrainians. It is our commitment and it is our national interest to do that. Further joint projects are in the works, including infrastructure modernization and development of distribution networks. We secure the urgent equipment needs of Ukrainians' armed forces. We have delivered, since the beginning of the war, Russian war against Ukraine, let's be clear, 47 aid packages. The 48th and 49th military package is waiting for adoption. We have also joined the Czech Ammunition Initiative, And we delivered various weapons. Let's not forget that Poland was the first country that delivered its Leopard, German tanks, to Ukraine. Let's remember also that we were specialists of delivering air defense systems, rifles, grenade launchers, armored vehicles, checked very well during operations in Afghanistan and in Iraq, rocket artillery systems, ammunition, but also MiG-29 fighter jets. Let's remember also that we trained approximately 30,000 Ukrainian soldiers. Not 3,000, 30,000 Ukrainian soldiers. Why? Because we feel responsible for regional security, and we are fully committed to seeking a solution to the war in Ukraine. One of the solutions, one of the aspects of that solution is the coalition of the willing. Poland supports the idea and the shape of the coalition of the willing as one of the guarantees for Ukraine if the peace plan is negotiated and is accepted by three sides. Poland will not take part directly in the coalition of the willing. But without Polish support, this coalition will not exist. Why? Because we guarantee the so-called strategic depth by securing logistics, supply lines, and command support, including our airfields, warehouses, road networks, and support of our armed forces. We are trying to convince our American hosts here, this is one of my tasks, that American support would be also of the utmost importance. We understand limitations of this American possible support, but what is possible to deliver to Ukraine, these are enablers. And as for enablers, there was an agreement that American decision makers will seriously take into consideration such a request. Seriously into consideration such a need. Finally, from the very beginning of my mission here, I tried to present directly and openly the basic arguments and aspects of our Polish approach to the final peace deal concerning Ukraine. And it consists of several points that I wanted to present to you. First, nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine. Secondly, non-recognition of Russian control over territories seized through aggression. Thirdly, strong military-based security guarantees. There are chances, by the way, to sign an agreement between Ukrainians and the United States concerning security guarantees. It is the first time during last years that such an opportunity was presented. I guess that you had an insight into the proposed solutions. We support such an agreement, bilateral agreement, supported by Ukrainians and Americans and Europeans of security guarantees. Without security guarantees for the future, it will be very difficult to secure the peace deal negotiated and finally adopted. No limitations on Ukraine's defense capabilities. We keep in mind in Poland our experiences from the beginning of the 18th century, when Peter the Great, on behalf of the Tsarist Russia, decided to impose limitations on our armed forces. Limitation of any armed forces in the world means that such a country with such limitations will not be able to adjust its capacity of its armed forces to the necessary objectives. So no limitations on the size of Ukrainian armed forces as well. Ukraine's freedom to choose its foreign policy and full sovereignty, plus diplomatic and economic pressure on Russia to fulfill its obligations. I had several times the opportunity to express our support for sanctions here in the United States. We are satisfied with the 17th package of sanctions imposed recently by President Trump's administration, and we believe that it will not be lifted. It can be lifted, but only when the peace deal is implemented simultaneously to the implementation of this final peace deal. In Europe, we agreed 19 times for sanction packages, and we are ready to do so in the future. So we are enhancing our American partners not only to implement fully the recent sanction agreement, but also to implement new sanctions concerning other individuals, companies, and Russian banks. Finally, I'd like to say that everything that I described concerning Ukraine can be implemented only if there is a unity between American and European partners. Poland was from the very beginning in favor of military effectiveness, but also political unity of the alliance. Without political unity, it would be very difficult to achieve any military goals of NATO. That's why maintaining NATO's political unity and the effectiveness of the alliance, along with commitments from NATO summits in Vilnius, Madrid, and The Hague, are crucial. We strongly believe that both the United States and Europe really benefit from strong transatlantic relations. Never in the history of the world has there been a more effective politico-military alliance than NATO. In the face of growing global challenges and threats, we advocate for an even stronger NATO. NATO's strategic value is highlighted by, first, the fact that the alliance has expanded rather than shrunk recently. Secondly, by the aspirations of states in our neighborhood, and also by NATO's global partnerships. When I mention global partnerships, I mean also partners from far regions like Japan, like South Korea, like our partners in Australia or New Zealand. These are partners of the alliance that are strongly committed to the Article 5 of the Washington Treaty and to the preamble of the Washington Treaty. The preamble that consists of the list of values crucial for the West. Without values like democracy, liberal values like market economy, there is no cohesion of the West. Those partners try to introduce and implement those values, not being formal members of the alliance. Finally, Poland believes that the presence of the US forces in Europe secures the US leadership position in NATO, while at the same time remaining key to NATO's deterrence posture. This is the most strategic objective I have. And this is the most important issue that we discuss with our American hosts, to maintain the current size of American development, American military development in Poland. As you know, this current size amounts for around 10,000 American soldiers. I'm proud that I was the first Minister of Defense in the history of my country that had the chance to sign with American Secretary of Defense, Bob Gates, the agreement concerning the first deployment of American troops in Poland in June 2011. At that time, after Russian intervention in Georgia, but before the first war, Russian war against Ukraine, we were convinced that we have to have American soldiers, American boots on Polish ground, and that every American soldier is important for deterrence and possibly defense of Poland. And this is the approach that was supported by all the governments in Poland. And the current size of American presence in Poland is the result of both this approach and the support from the society. Moreover, we were together with Americans in Iraq, in Afghanistan. We were also together with Americans in Kosovo, and we are still in Kosovo with American soldiers, before in Bosnia and Herzegovina, because of our transatlantic solidarity. We believed that when it was necessary to support Americans at the beginning of this century in Iraq and before in Afghanistan, it will be a kind of our insurance. A kind of our insurance for the future if Poland is threatened by one of our historic, traditional enemies, by Russian Federation. And there is a set, of arguments to continue that deployment. We appreciate the strategic declaration by President Donald Trump from the beginning of September this year, that who, in the presence of Polish President Nawrocki, declared that American contingent in Poland wouldn't be diminished. And we hope that there will be nobody here in the United States that would undermine this strategic declaration by the President of the United States. Once again, because of our mutual interest. Polish, Central European on the one hand, and on the other hand, American interest of presence in Europe. At the same time, the United States has clearly communicated its expectation for Europe to assume greater responsibility for transatlantic security. And this expectation is fully justified. After Russia's full-scale aggression against Ukraine, we have entered a phase of implementation of concrete and collective commitments. For example, the EU and its 27 member states remain united and determined in our unprecedented support for Ukraine. Since the beginning of the war, we have allocated nearly $200 billion US dollars. Once again, $200 billion US dollars in financial, military, humanitarian, and refugee assistance. European states are strengthening regional cooperation formats, including in the field of defense. For instance, my country, Poland, seeks closer cooperation with the group of Nordic and Baltic states, because frankly speaking, it is one of the crucial theaters in which we can see the confrontation in the form of the hybrid war. But hybrid warfare is also important, for security of our citizens. So we are trying to reinforce this cooperation in this format. During the Russian drone operation, recent drone operation against Poland, I called my wife. She was in Krakow. It was at night. And she was sleeping, in our apartment together with our children. I called her, Anna, you should be aware that one of those drones could hit our apartment in Krakow, because we didn't know what was the trajectory of those drones. We knew only that there is a massive drone operation against Poland in the form of violation of our airspace. It was the first time in the history of Poland after our accession to NATO that such an operation was launched. It was the first time, we know it better right now, that it was connected directly with huge disinformation campaign. So it was a kind of examination of our reaction. When I say our, now I don't mean only Polish reaction, but the reaction of the alliance. Our airspace is a part of the Allied airspace. Our borders are the part of borders of the alliance. That's why during this operation, such a reaction of NATO was examined, and I have to admit that we are satisfied with the at least military part of this reaction. NATO showed its ability to act at that time. Part of those drones were hit not only by Polish Air Force, but also by Spanish aircraft. And cooperation with our partners on the ground and in the airspace at that time was effective. Polish government decided to invoke Article 4 of the Washington Treaty as quickly as possible, and last day we presented it to the headquarters, NATO headquarters in Brussels. In 2 days' time, there was a meeting. There was a formal sitting of North Atlantic Council concerning this issue. Very quickly reacted also UN Security Council, and you could see, let's say, the sitting with declarations of our allies, including the ambassador of the United States at the UN Security Council, that declared without any hesitation that every inch of the NATO territory, including the airspace, will be protected, is protected and will be defended. It is more than protected, is protected and will be defended. Very often I receive questions from here and from Europe about our model cooperation with the United States. What is the reason that we decided to support American defense companies and reduce unemployment here in the United States, allocating around $62 billion here in American defense industry? It is a huge effort for our taxpayers. It is a huge effort for our state budget to do that. We decided that not only because of quality of the weaponry here, and not only because of traditional cooperation with Lockheed Martin, with General Dynamics and other defense giants here in the United States, we decided to do that also because we wanted, and we still want, to support the strategic partnership between Poland and the US, especially in the area of security. Especially in the area of security. Poland's defense spending is expected to reach 4.7% of GDP this year, the highest share of GDP among NATO countries. The United States is by far the largest beneficiary of the program I described before in terms of the volume of defense contracts. Poland is ready and well positioned to serve as a regional hub for US forces in Central Europe. So not only deployment in Poland is important, but also we support the presence of US military troops in other parts of Central Europe. More than 50% of the Polish defense spending goes towards modernization of our armed forces, around $20 billion annually. Why I do mention that? Not because of showing our pride, but also because we let our American hosts to use Polish example, to use Polish model in the future relationship between the US and other European countries. We warn also our American partners not to go too far, because the decoupling with Europe would be one of the major disasters for transatlantic cooperation and would reduce the ability to act on both sides of the Atlantic Oceans, also here. That's why we try to show our model of cooperation between Warsaw and Washington. I will return to this example again as the model of maintaining two loyalties, European loyalty and Atlantic loyalty, both so crucial, for the future of the West. Thank you very much. Indeed.
Thank you so much, Dr. Klich. And the floor is open for questions. If you would entertain some, I think Christina has a mic, right? You can. Yeah. So she can. If you have a question, please raise your hand and.
Because.
Thank you so much for this presentation. Security guarantees for Ukraine obviously are critical, but it's becoming more and more complex issue these days with hybrid war, because guarantee of just prevention of incursion is one thing, but guarantee of not using hybrid war to create government similar to Belarus, for example, is another. And expansion of hybrid war that we've been seeing recently into explosions on the railroad tracks, fires, etc., tells us that that's very active and comprehensive way of trying to accomplish those objectives. What is the new doctrine that Poland, NATO, political and military could use to provide this type of security guarantees
For Ukraine.
for Ukraine?
Let's begin with the process of negotiations between Americans and Ukrainians, because it is on track right now. And we were positively surprised with the proposal of not additional, but separate security guarantees that were delivered to Ukrainian side. I'm not talking about the 28 points peace roadmap, peace deal. I'm talking about this document that Ukrainians obtained, in which there is a willingness of American side to provide Ukraine with real security guarantees. I know the position of Ukraine. I'm not allowed, to share with even such a distinguished audience. But it is one of the main areas of negotiations between Americans and Ukrainians. We will see what will be the result of this negotiation, but the fact that American side provided Ukraine with such a proposal is crucial because it is on the table. It was submitted to Ukrainian side as a separate agreement between the United States and Ukraine. It is much more than during last several months, when in this framework of security guarantees, everybody was speaking only about the coalition of the willing mission in Ukraine. From the military point of view, very weak, because what can such a coalition consisting of even 4 or 5 brigades do when there is an attack or the threat of the attack against Ukraine? So currently we are in a crucial moment of the negotiations, and I hope that it will be the turning point concerning the issue of security guarantees for Ukraine.
America has treaties which the president cannot break. America also has agreements which our president can break at will, such as happened during Trump's first term when he withdrew from the agreement about Iranians not making nuclear weapons for 15 years. Would NATO be satisfied with an agreement as opposed to a treaty? And would Zelensky or the Ukrainian government be satisfied with an agreement as opposed to a treaty from the United States as part of a security guarantee?
I belonged to this group of representatives during the Bucharest summit in the year 2008 that was encouraging other partners to not only to declare membership in NATO for Ukraine, but also to implement this declaration, beginning the process of so-called membership action plan. Polish delegation was strongly in favor of doing that at that time. And of course, those experts saying that Ukraine can enjoy real security guarantees when it belongs to NATO community are right. But we understand also that there is no mood right now for such a decision. That's why, from the Polish side, we'll accept, all security guarantees negotiated by Ukrainians with the United States. And frankly speaking, taking into account potential of military potential of the United States and comparing this military potential with potential of other NATO members, it is the US that should guarantee security for Ukraine. That's why those negotiations are so important and can be significant. There are different forms of bilateral security guarantees. And we are talking right now about bilateral agreement between the US and Ukraine concerning bilateral security guarantees, or better, US security guarantees for Ukraine. They should be constructed in a much better way than so-called Budapest Memorandum of 1994, because it failed. just after the first invasion of Russian Federation on Ukrainian soil. So it shouldn't be only a political agreement, but everything, once again, that will be negotiated between Ukrainians and Americans will be accepted by us.
Other questions?
Thank you, Dr. Klich, for the lecture. I wanted to follow up on that question. I wanted to ask if the security guarantees by NATO are really enough of a guarantee for all the countries, especially Poland, Ukraine, also Georgia, which is currently also being pushed the border by border. Would you think, is there any other measures of securities that we can take to stop Russia from being aggressor as it is right now? Because the history writes itself, and we see that Putin is capable of doing what he does.
I'm from the old school. I'm from the old school, and the old school speaks, about mutual commitments as sacrificed. It means that if we committed, to other members of the alliance our support, such a guarantee has to be implemented. But it is also important to have means, to have enough tools to implement those guarantees. And there are several anchors, I would say, of the Article 5 of the Washington Treaty, encouraging all the members of the alliance to contribute, not only declarations, but also real security means to support if a member or a group of members of the alliance are threatened. And there are several anchors. I will mention 2 or 3 to show you how military decisions are crucial for effectiveness of the alliance. First of all, it is, these are exercises, military exercises. NATO has to exercise the joint response if a member or the group of members is or are threatened. Such exercises concerning Article 5 of the Washington Treaty were negotiated by ministers of defense of Poland and plus my colleagues from Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia in the year 2010, and they were launched the first time after the Cold War, 2 years later. Since then, NATO has been training and exercising various scenarios of the response in such a situation. We have also a good doctrine. Let's not forget that nobody undermined or rejected, the strategic concept of the alliance that was adopted just after the second Russian war against Ukraine in Madrid. In this doctrine, briefly speaks about threats, and Russia is perceived in this doctrine as a significant and direct threat to all the alliance. Significant and direct threat. 80%, around 80% of this doctrine is devoted to this threat and how to deal with this threat, what to do, and how to be prepared for such scenarios. So let's keep in mind that this strategic concept, NATO strategic concept, is still, the main intellectual, political, and military basis for NATO operations. Thirdly, one of former summits, NATO summits, decided to adopt also regional defense plans. of the alliance. Regional defense plans, these are scenarios of activity, behavior of NATO troops in the case of the attack from the east. And we support all those initiatives showing that these are not only documents, that such regional defense plans are being implemented. And I can assure you that fortunately, NATO trains its troops to achieve those goals that were designed in those regional defense plans.
Yes.
But of course, it is necessary to do more.
Thank you, Dr. Klich. Staying on the subject of the military, in regards to the recent drone incident, are there any U.S. Air Force units in Poland? And do they have any kind of obligation, or they respond to the to protecting our Polish Air Force or airspace, or is it only responsibility of the UN coalition?
It is the joint responsibility because of, for example, U.S. air defense systems like Patriots. They are crucial, for security of our airspace. The presence of U.S. ground troops is also crucial for deterrence of our enemies. And it is a division of labor within the alliance who is responsible for what. So from that point of view, Americans are our crucial partners concerning the traditional defense and deterrence, but also crucial partners concerning cybersecurity. That's why this message that I was talking about, robust size of the disinformation campaign that was connected to the operation, it was more than incident. You said incident. It was more than incident. It was well prepared Russian drone operation that wanted to violate NATO airspace. So from that point of view, it is one of our fields of cooperation with Americans, how to respond to those threats. Mm-hmm.
We had a question on this side.
Ladies, please.
Thank you, Dr. Rosenstiel. I am from France, as you can hear, and I wonder if your government is on the same line as our government in France, and if not, what are the fields of divergence between the two? And this is for France and Poland. And what about the other European governments? Thank you.
For years, we were encouraged in Poland to accept the concept of European strategic autonomy. It was one of the original concepts developed by French presidency, French administration. But we were not interested, in this concept because it meant at that time that there would be a gap between Europeans and Americans, because we believed, and we still believe, as I said twice before, I can confirm that the third time, that European loyalty should go together with Atlantic loyalty, and that we have to have Americans on board. There are. That's why after the second invasion and the evolution of the French doctrine, and President Macron's huge support for Ukrainians, one could see that also the authors of the strategic autonomy concept abandoned this concept, fortunately, because we need Americans in. Perhaps you remember that the beginning of the alliance, you don't remember that, me neither, but at the beginning of the alliance in 1949, there was a famous sentence, let's keep Americans in, Germans down, and Russians out. Now I used to say, let's keep Americans in, Russians out, and Europe stronger. And let's make Europe stronger. It envisages our approach. We need Americans in. We need Russians out. we need Europe, I mean European Union, and the coalition of European leaders advocating and implementing the concept of stronger Europe. Europe should be stronger. And in this coalition of the willing, there are almost all European Union's leaders. We have some problems with the Hungarian current government. We have some problems with Viktor Orban. And it is also one of the topics of our conversations with the American administration, because of the proximity between, because of the mutual understanding between America and Europe. We try to convince our American partners to make a pressure on Orban's government in Hungary to be more pro-Atlantic and pro-European. So I tried to describe you also the recent history, but the current situation in Europe, in which Polish government is one of 5 or 6 governments, both pro-European and pro-American. And let's try to continue that. I don't want to say that there are no obstacles. There are obstacles because in Europe there are also political circles that would enjoy either decoupling with the United States or decoupling with the European Union. But fortunately, the mainstream of European foreign and security policy right now is in favor of maintaining those traditional two crucial dimensions, I would say, of the security policy within the alliance. I don't know if I satisfied you. Thank you. Thank you so much. It was my great pleasure.